The way that we see other people's lives is not often indicative of how it feels to actually be them. Why is it that some of us just spend outrageous amounts of time trying to match other people's success? And finally, how do we address our perceptions in a way that's not going to leave us feeling inferior all the time? And that we need to meet these often very lofty successes often portrayed by other people. When I first heard the idea that other people's experience isn't indicative of the way that you feel about them, it kind of threw me for a loop. Because before you hear that, it seems that everyone who has successes around you must be feeling better than you because you haven't achieved that success, if that makes sense. And by the way, the person that first introduced me to this idea was somebody who has had a huge amount of success with their company, selling it for, I think, $1 billion, so they obviously know what they're talking about. So this is somebody that you would definitely trust, having achieved great heights of success and knowing what it feels like, perhaps long term. Now, the reasons why our perceptions, especially these types of perceptions, are unreflective of reality in the first place is because they are built upon the relationship between us and them. So we're taking a comparison, we're saying this person is up here and we're down here, and because I'm down here I'm feeling not good enough, and that might bring about emotions like fear and embarrassment or any number of things really. But they create emotions which give us a sense of needing to quickly build ourselves up to X amount of success so we can feel okay again, basically. But the issue is those stories that we tell ourselves about how good it would be to have those goals achieved become projections onto the people with those goals fulfilled. And the more inferior we feel in this moment, the more amazing it must feel to be those people. But the way that person feels has nothing to do with what you're experiencing. So what we're actually saying is, when I achieve the amount of success that they've had, I'm going to feel amazing. But even if we did achieve those heights, the immediate feelings of the success are going to wear off anyway. So we're not going to be experiencing long term what we're hoping for. So let's recap this for a second. We see somebody being successful, whether that's somebody that we don't know or somebody that we do know, and often if it's somebody we do know, the effects can be a lot worse because we feel like if we know them, it leaves you feeling like, well, there's no excuse for me, I should be achieving what they're achieving. You start to feel like you're not enough, which is kind of a scary thing to feel. You start to project the idea that they must have a great life based on how much that you're feeling that you should be aspiring to what they have. Then you might spend years, decades even, trying to achieve what they've achieved because you've built a picture of how it feels to be that person. But don't forget that is a projection, and that's just an idea that was built on a comparison between you and them, which doesn't actually exist. Here's an interesting example. Let's imagine that you see somebody famous walking down the street and they're getting all this attention, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? Because you might feel inferior in their presence, you're going to start projecting the idea onto that person that it must be so amazing to be them. But don't forget, that's just based on how you feel, and you and them are mutually exclusive. They don't interact with each other. And so to fill that void, you might think that you need to become them. And let's say that you do become them someday. This hyper reality of happiness that you thought was perpetually going to be the case if you reach that state is going to be quickly demolished by the fact that that's not the case. And then you'll be like, damn, I thought it was going to feel so much better. Well, why did that happen in the first place? It's because you created an imaginary reality based on what you're seeing from the outside of somebody else with their flashy glasses, flash clothes, and all the attention that they're getting, that their lives must be so much better than it really is. And that's especially the case if the qualities that they portray, such as getting a lot of attention, are something that you haven't had a lot of in your life. So the stories that we tell ourselves about how good it's going to be them are often exacerbated by the things that we haven't had a lot of. So why are we so involved with other people in the first place in this way? Why are we constantly looking to the best people around us, whether we know them or not, to bring ourselves down and say that we're not enough, that we need to achieve those heights as well? Well, I think part of this is that the fact that looking to others for cues is something that has been deeply ingrained in us since childhood. When we are a child, we look to others around us to signal how we should be acting. In that way, we are copycatting. We look around us and see what the norm should be, and we try and match it. Because we don't know how to act before we are taught to do so when we are younger. But by that same token, we do a very similar thing when we compare ourselves to other people in adulthood. We look around us for cues as to how to act, even when we might be acting fine as it is. We don't need to add any more on top of the way that we're already acting. But it's also things like not wanting to feel like we're falling out of our pack and meeting our potential in life. So we think it's useful to take the most successful people around us and use them as references to how we should be living our lives. But this is often harmful, and we don't do it in ways that actually benefit us. Because we do this in a very fearful way. We don't look at somebody else's life and go, oh, yeah, I could be doing that. We look at somebody else's lives and go, I should be there too. And we do that with such conclusive brute force energy that we end up just getting so lost and confused in ourselves, and we start chasing things that we think are going to bring us far more than they do. And that's what this whole video is about. It's about how our perceptions are built on how things around us relate to us. And if we say, that person must be feeling this way because of how I see them, then our perceptions are not reflective of what's really going on. So we can strive to have the things that other people have, but we have to be careful about what it's going to deliver if we actually get there. And to be honest, just hearing somebody who has been extremely successful and hearing them say that the way that you see other people is not how it really feels to be them was enough to bring about a serious shift in mentality about the way that we see other people. And it's also really important to note that the successes we see in other people are what we focus on, but we don't get to see the 99% of hardship that went into that small little flash of results that we saw. You can't want other people's successes without wanting their hardships to get there as well. There's no point in ignoring the other side of the coin. And don't forget, a lot of the success that we see portrayed in others is actually still a performance. A lot of people perform their way to success, and what we see is not really what they're experiencing on the inside. You won't know what somebody's experiencing unless they are being seriously transparent about it. But most of the time, people won't do that, because it often doesn't hold any value for them to do so. And it is often a complete conflict with the performance persona that they've adopted to get to where they really are. So again, this is just a perception change, and it comes from knowing the facts and not falling into these funny realities that the mind creates to, although move us forward in productive ways like we're going to be doing more, they do so at a great cost, and one that's built on false perceptions of how life really is.